Okay, takeaway from yesterday was why when we are installing Postgres, we don't specify the version, but 16 is the one that gets installed.
Yes.
The reason being is that it picks the most stable version that is exists. Okay,
Yes, you mentioned that.
perfect. I want you guys to be very active. That was just a question. Listen, Angu, I can see you're talking. I hope you earned some time to sleep after the night of code. You spent the whole night here. How are you feeling? Hata sauti ilipotea yangu. Perfect. We also have Tony. Tony, how are you? Are you in a position to speak? Tony Commander.
Yes, yeah, I'm in a position.
What is the last thing that you contributed to in the class?
In terms of contribution, mainly like sharing my screen and assisting.
Sharing the screen is not a contribution. We want tips, we want topics, we want something that others would learn from you. What can you say? Screen anyone can share. Even Jean shared the screen.
What I can say, like during the week, I learned more advanced Linux and server management skills, building on basics of navigation and file handling. Also explored some man ls commands.
Specific, please. Can you be specific? File handling. What did you learn in file handling and navigate?
Basically about moving and copying files. Am I still audible? Hello, am I still? Okay.
Go on.
The other thing I remember we practiced was transferring files between a local machine and a remote server using SCP. Your secure copy.
Secure copy, sorry.
Secure copy. And managing files using MV and CP were basically like MV.
Managing files is moving files or copying files.
Yeah.
Specific, sir.
Where MV like moves files and CP creates copies. Yes. Something else, I think downloading files directly from the internet using
Do you remember creating a user and giving him access to giving him or her access to the database?
Yes.
That was obvious, or why didn't you mention it? Just wanted to give Doreen what you guys have been looking at. Supposed to be a joke. Doreen, hi. Thank you everyone for joining. We can see we have 87, which is a good number in the column that we can get started. The rest will be joining us during the call and they can learn from us. We'll be hosting Doreen Wanyama. Doreen has been part of our part-time trainer for the last 1 year. How many months? We're in month 6, so that makes it 1 year, 18 months. She has been one of the contributors in the SQL and database management. She started as a database administrator, consultant at, you can correct me, Doreen, by the way. I highly recommend that. She has been a consultant at Diamond Trust Bank, and then she joined us full-time. I remember us having that conversation when she was transitioning. She is now a full-time employee with Diamond Trust Bank. Maybe she moved within the last 3 weeks because we haven't talked. But the last time I checked, that is 3-4 months ago, she was a database administrator at Diamond Trust Bank. Actually, maybe she doesn't know, but she works with one of our alumni. What is his name? The tall guy who was doing code 4, who joined Diamond Trust Bank as an intern. Onyango, I don't know. Is Hillary? It was Hillary who? There is a Hillary Onyango in your team. I don't know if you still know him, but he was part of our team and he joined you as an intern. I don't know his progress, but maybe if Denzel is here, he can share more light because let me check if Hillary is here. No, Hillary is not here. Anyway, just mentioning someone that you work with. You might not know, but you do work with him. He was also a student at Lux. Maybe you taught him one time or the other. She works as a database administrator, and most of the works that we did with data engineering the first week, I know from a profession perspective or your take, you might say we are very unfair to them. But what we did is we are trying to install Postgres with them. We're trying to run Linux. We're trying to do file permissions. We're trying to give them access. We're trying to create a user and manage users. So those are the things that we do in data engineers. Then we have people who have never seen database and they don't know even what database is. Then we have people who just know SQL, but they don't know how the database is managed. So their work is just to connect with database. So take the fact that we have everyone around and manage the session like you'd manage if you're given a random cloud in town and you're supposed to talk with them. Otherwise, don't mind if you take over, introduce yourself and collect me where I introduced you long, and then you can take over the session for the next 1 hour. Then you can take questions after that. Doreen? Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope I'm audible.
Is it possible to see you? Like it's the culture now, we have to see the person talking, but I didn't.
Are you
inform you.
serious?
I didn't inform you in advance, so it's okay to say no. But if you turn off your or turn on your camera, it's okay so that they can put
Next
that
time you see, I'll come in person.
Oh, you come in person. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the promise you make.
visit one of these
But
fine days.
please make sure that you don't put a debt in me that you won't commit. So you come in person.
Yeah, I will. One
Tony.
of these fine days.
Tony, Bridget is in the call as a trainer, Tony as a student, Lacey as a student. Who is in code 7? Anyone? You can type your name quickly so that I can give you a number. I want you to follow up and know when she's coming. I don't want to do that follow-up. Put the name quickly. I don't want to be the person following up with Doreen to know when she's coming. I want you guys to follow up with her to know when she's coming, organize the meetup. We have developed a whole community of over 2,000 people, and you tell me you can't have someone who can organize the meetup for her. Talk about SQL. Good. Brian Monene, quote. Patrick Omodi is in code 8. Anyone else? Brian Monene, code 7. Code 6. Who are we picking? Anyone in code 6, please? Rakisha. I want someone in code 6. Okay, Brian Monene, please contact me so that I can give you Doreen's number. And also Patrick Omondi, 96 16 66 28. That is my personal number. Just text me so that we can organize on when Doreen is coming. Otherwise, Doreen, it's your time. Take over, introduce yourself the way you want to be introduced, and talk and share what you wanted us to share with us today. Thank you.
My name is Doreen Nankira or Doreen Wanyama. On LinkedIn, you can find me as Doreen Nankira, and on X, I'm a database administrator. As Aaron has said, I mostly work with SQL, and 80% or 90% of my work, I use SQL. That is my bread and butter. I work at Diamond Trust Bank as a database administrator. As Harun has just said, that is correct. I still work there and I enjoy working there. I love working with databases. For those of you who have been with in class, some of them can testify that I enjoy working with databases and writing SQL. It's something that just makes me happy when I work with databases. And also, I don't like it when people mess around with my databases also. And I don't like it when people confuse MS SQL from MySQL. There is a difference between MySQL and MS SQL. I hope you're not one of those people who confuse that. I hope there'll be no confusion when I come there. Apart from that, I like coffee also. Apart from databases, I like taking coffee. The only drink that I like, that's my favorite drink. And I take strong coffee, not light coffee, not coffee with milk. I take strong coffee without milk. That's about me. That's the introduction. So today we are going to have job shadowing. We are going to talk about my role, and you're going to be asking me questions. anything you need clarification on, anything that you've been confusing, or if those of you who have been thinking that maybe you don't know the careers you can go into when you're in the data field, you can ask questions about that. So we are going to talk more about this in this job shadowing. So you feel free to ask your questions. If you cannot speak, you can put them in the chat section and I will do my best to answer. Yeah. Who is the host, Haroon? Let's start. Okay, I think Haroon is gone. I usually prefer when you ask.
I am the host actually, but that is why they're laughing.
Okay. Okay, back to you, Haroon. I think, Haroon, I can't hear him, so I think I will.
Doreen, did you ask me a question?
Oh, I will just start going now through. I thought it's going to be like the normal job shadowing. They usually we work with the host, but I will go on.
No questions, just go on freestyle. Just
Okay.
Rap. Yep. Do
So
whatever you want.
first of all, I've done the introduction, and the first thing some of you might be asking, what inspired me to become a database administrator? I know some of you might be having the questions. I didn't start out with a clear goal of the career that I'll take. In school, I studied IT. Yes, I studied IT. But during my I remember during the internship, we used to have attachments, not internship. We used to have attachments in school. So in the first attachment, I was introduced to networking, and we're doing networking in the hotel industry. So I was more of climbing the ladder, going to fix the network. Those who know about there were people who fix the Wi-Fi, those ones. So those are the things that I was doing in the hotel, and also like the hardware maintenance, like looking at the hardware, the CPU, and repairing computers. Those are the type of work I was doing during my attachment, and I felt like this is not something I want to do for the rest of my life. So after the attachment, I think I deferred, or maybe I quit IT for some time. And then I went to the hospitality industry. For those of you who are on LinkedIn, you'll see that I've been in the hospitality industry. So I went to the hospitality industry and I went to healthcare. I worked sometimes at the healthcare also while trying to find myself. Then after 2 years, then I told myself, I am not happy in the healthcare industry. I need to leave the healthcare industry and to go and find myself, to know what I can do. So I started learning about software engineering again, just getting the concepts now. That was after I had finished campus, but I had the concepts of IT, I had forgotten a lot of them. So I started upskilling in software engineering. And after 1 year, it was 1 year or 8 months, I got a job as a software developer in a certain company. And I started working there. It's while in the software development field, while in that company, we were, during their work, we were writing raw SQL commands. The way you usually write the SQL query, select star, select user from. So we were not using while writing the SQL scripts, I realized that I enjoy working with SQL and I enjoy working with databases. So my colleagues, they did not like working with SQL. So they were giving me all the work in SQL. And with that, I realized this is something I want to do for a long time. I felt like it is easy for me because in the software development field, I was doing more front-end development. On front end, for those who have worked with software engineering field, it's like you are using React. We were using React. And creating front-end things like the user interface, making something look beautiful, it's something that wasn't for me. I wasn't enjoying it. So I realized when I realized I don't enjoy it, I decided to concentrate more on databases. And I started upskilling in databases now, going deeper into databases, learning how databases work. And after that, after like 2 months, after feeling dissatisfaction in that company, I had to quit. I quit without a backup plan. And I started like just doing like freelance stuff, like teaching people SQL and also teaching people something like SQL in data analysis. So I was surviving on freelance, like earning some, like maybe lunch money when I teach someone SQL, like that. Like sometimes you teach someone SQL, you get 1,000. So that one was how I was surviving. So with time, after that, there's a time LuxDev was looking for people who would take people through SQL, and I volunteered to take people through SQL. And from that also, I got some calls from people who saw my online YouTube when I was teaching SQL. They asked me that, why can't you go into databases? Why can't you become a database administrator? And so I started digging deeper into database administration, what it is, learning some skills. And Makio had never worked as a database administrator. So during this time, I've been practicing with SQL in databases like for 6 months. Then I saw a role a certain company was advertising. It was a fintech company, was advertising a junior DBA. And in most fintech companies, when they want a junior database administrator, they usually want like 2 years experience. So I saw there was 2 years experience. I saw they wanted certification in Oracle. Oracle is a database management system. And I saw that they also wanted someone who has worked with system administration. I had not worked in system administration. So I told myself, I enjoy working with databases. I like working with SQL. I knew that the main bread of databases is SQL. And I told myself, let me give it a shot. With the little knowledge I have, let me give it a shot. I applied for the job. And after 1 week, I was shortlisted for the interview, Then I got to the interview. And by God's grace, I was able to get the job. And that's how I started my journey in the database administration. Without any experience in DBA, without the 2 years experience, without any certification, just simply because I followed my passion and I believed in myself. So you can also do it. Hiya. That is into DBA. You've seen that. Just by passion and going without having any doubts of the experience I had. So another thing, so I would like to encourage you, if you see something that you like, you have passionate about, go for it. Let nothing discourage you. As long as it's something you believe you want to do for the rest of your life or enjoy doing, just go for it. By the way, during the interview, I haven't told you, during the interview, they were asking for someone who has worked with Oracle. I had only worked with Postgres. And this company, most financial companies, they work with Oracle database management system. And I told them, I haven't worked with Oracle. I want someone who's good in Oracle, but I'm good in SQL and I love working with databases. You give me this opportunity, then I assure you I'll be able to meet the qualifications after some 6 months. I will do my best, I will improve, and I'll be good in this. So they gave me the shot. So that is something like confidence. When you're in the interview, when they ask if you know something, sometimes it's good to admit, say you don't know, but you're ready to learn. The willingness to learn is something that most recruiters want. Most companies want someone who likes learning or improving themselves. So I think they saw the passion and the willingness to learn, and they gave me the chance. And that's what I would like to encourage you also. Don't be afraid of saying you don't know anything. Just tell the truth, but always be willing to say that you're ready to learn. Yeah. And then another thing, I talked about my educational background. I already told you. So this time around now, I'm going to tell you about my journey as a DBA, how far it has been, how I started, since I started, my day life, how it is. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about you, when you are a DBA, database administrator, first of what is a DBA? Anyone who knows who a database administrator does, just from the English word administrator. Anyone who can write in the chat who is a DBA or database administrator. Anything you understand by a database administrator before I talk about what I do during my work. I'm waiting in the chat, or someone can raise their hand and speak. I'm waiting. Anyone who knows what a DBA is, a database administrator is? Anything you understand?
Yeah. So
David?
yeah. So on my side, just from the word itself, I would say that a database admin is someone who designs databases, manages databases, and is in charge of like the roles of the people in the database and everything that entails data storage and retrieve.
Okay. And then Brian has said doing admin work in the database. And what is admin work? You can expound. Joy manages database. Mule has said a person responsible for managing and securing data. Leslie has said a database administrator gives what? Gives people, can I read it? A database administrator gives people, gives people database and what? Oh, I can't see it well. Something is blocking. Martin's things is blocking. Okay, I think gives people databases and monitors databases. Yes, all that we do. Secures and maintains data. That is Paul Cassidy. Yes, we secure. Yeah. So basically what you have said, most of what you have said is true. Paul has said ensures data is updated. Stephen, you can close your camera. So basically what I do in my daily life as a DBA, in my daily life, I usually manage databases, as most of you have said. I usually make sure that our databases are secure from any harm or from any attack. And I make sure that our data that is in the database is protected. And I also manage the controls. I control the database access, who can get into the database and who cannot get into the database. So basically, I manage databases to ensure that it is secure and safe. So as a DBA, during my daily life, most of the things that we do, first of all, we ensure that, to ensure security, first of all, the way you learned recently, I've had, is it cohort 8, that you learned about user creation and giving them access.
Please let's make sure that our mic is muted. Okay, Paul, you're having a conversation there and you don't know that we're listening. Also, your camera, we don't want to mention to anyone who is unmuted, please. We don't want a house tour. Make sure that your mic is muted. If it's your audio, we don't want to listen to your discussion. We're listening to Doreen today. Yeah, there you come. So let's give Doreen more time.
Okay, thank you. So I say that the way we control who has access to the databases, recently you learned about user creation in the database, user creation and giving them access. That is the same thing we do as DBS. In our company or where I work, we usually manage the users that have access to the database. And how do we do this? In the database, we have a rule or a law, the database world, that always give the least privileges. What do I mean by this? If, example, I'm working with a data analyst and I'm working with a software engineer, A data analyst, their work, their work mostly is to analyze the data and they give you the report. And a software engineer, their work is to design applications or to design softwares. These two people have different roles in the company. So it means, as I'm working at that DBA, before I give access to someone, I have to ask myself, this person, which access should I give them to ensure that they do their work? I give you access that is only related to your work. So if I'm working as a data analyst with a data analyst and I'm a DBA in this company, and in the DBA we have the rule of give the least privilege only, don't give excess privilege. I know a data analyst, their work mostly is to just analyze the data and to give report. So if your work is to analyze, it means your work, you are going through the data and you are viewing it. Like when I'm analyzing the football match in Kenya, now I wanted to start thinking as a DBA, if you're working as a DBA and you're working with other people. If I'm analyzing the football match that happened maybe last year or this year, the EPL, or I don't know if you're doing EPL or you're doing UEFA. If I'm analyzing the data, it means I am not making changes to that data. If I'm analyzing the football matches, I'm not making changes to the match results. It means I am only viewing to get conclusions. So as a database administrator, I know this data analyst, their work is to analyze. So it means they are not going to make changes to the data in the database. So when I'm thinking as a DBA, I will know when you are giving access to users, we have users like you can give them access, the privilege of seeing the data, or you can give them the privilege. When I talk about privilege, is permission. So if I'm creating a user, I can either give them the permission to see the data in the database or to make changes in the database, like to update. And then I can give them the ability to add data into the database. But if I'm working as a DBA and I'm working with a data analyst and their work is to analyze, it means I will only give them the role of viewing the data. I'll give them the select privilege. And when you go to the software developer also, you have to understand the work of a software developer. A software developer designs applications. So it means when this person designing applications or designing things, it means he's going to be making changes in the system. So if I'm working as a database administrator with a software developer, it means the rights I give to a software developer will be different from the rights I give to a data analyst. So this software developer will have the rights for making changes in the database, like update, like insert. Those are some of the privilege, the rights that we give to users. So that is some of the things we do. We understand, in the company, we understand the users' roles, their work they do, and then to give them access to the database, we give them access according to the work they do. That is reasoning as a DBA. I don't expect you when you come to work as a DBA and you start giving every employee in the company same privilege. That one you'll be fired within no time. So as a DBA, you need to learn about access controls and you need to know the types of privileges we have in databases. And when you know those types, you'll be able to know this person is doing this work and you'll be able to match this person's profession to the privileges they need, the privileges that will enable them to do their work. That is working as a DBA. And another thing you have to know when you're working as a DBA, not everyone in the company will have access to a database. Not every employee in the company will have access to the database. We have some employees that don't have access to the database. because their work even does not involve working with databases. Someone like the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of a company, what do they need to work with databases? What do they need in databases seriously? Their work is to look at the progress of the company and also to give updates of how the company is doing and to give the guidance of where we are going. But they don't need anything in the database. So you can have a CEO in the company, but they don't have access to the database. They don't know even what a database is. So that is some of the things you need to know as a DBA. You have to understand the people's roles and what they will need in the database before you grant permission. So those are the things that we do in access control. Another thing that we do as a DBA, we usually make sure that we put security features in place, because when I'm working as a DBA in a company, for example, I have clients in the banking sector. If you are going to the bank, you are a client of the bank. Maybe you have registered with a bank called Cooperative or maybe Kenya Commercial Bank. You want your data to be safe and secure. You don't want anyone to know about your account number. You don't want anyone to know who you are, and you don't want anyone to know your phone numbers. So as database administrators, it is our work to ensure the data is safe. And how do we do this? Some of the things that we implement as DBS to keep our data safe, when we are keeping our data, we have something called data masking. Just like when you wear a mask as a human being, when you put on a mask, nobody will see you clearly, or people will not be able to recognize you. The same concept we apply in databases also, because these are sensitive data and you don't want people to have access. In the financial industry and in some healthcare industry, we have some data terminologies that you should just know. Something like PII. PII is like, it's called personally identifiable information. In the data laws or data regulations in the world, you are always told to ensure that you make sure that the PII data of someone is not exposed. Those are some of the rules we have in the data world. Even if you're working as a data engineer or data analyst, and you're working in a place where they deal with sensitive data, some of the sensitive data is like someone's phone number. Data that can easily identify someone. They can make you know who is this person. When I get a phone number for someone, like for Harun, I go to Truecaller. I will easily find this is Harun. Or I go to Safaricom. That phone number will tell me this is Harun. When I get an ID number, it will tell me this is Harun, because I can put in the system the ID number and it gives me the owner of this ID number. So any information that makes you to recognize someone, to know who is the owner of that information, is called a personally identifiable information. And most industries that have such information, such data are like hospitals, the healthcare industry, because they keep patients' data, the banking industry, they keep clients' data. So when we are working with PII data as DBS, before we give people database access, we should make sure that data is safeguarded. We do things like data masking, the one I've told. We hide the data. We can write some scripts or some SQL scripts, SQL queries, to ensure that when you view that data, you will not be able to see the data well. You'll not be able to identify this is a phone number of someone, or you'll not be able to know this is someone's ID. So we do such things. Another way of safeguarding the data to keep it secure, we usually also do like data randomization. We randomize the data. In that, we make sure that if it is a phone number somewhere, we put the phone numbers in a way that you cannot know it's a phone number. We put it with a mixture of characters. When I say character, is like an asterisk, an apostrophe, a hyphen, exclamation mark. So that is data randomization. We do such things also when we are safeguarding our data. So those are some of the things we use when we are keeping our data safe, the data that is stored in the database, so that nobody can easily get to it or can easily tamper with it, especially the PII data. This is very sensitive. I need you to go, when you are in the data industry, you need to learn about the data laws in the world. We have different data laws. If you have not covered that when you're starting to learn in your course, go and just research. We have the data laws in the whole world. We have the European law in the Europe. We have many. I don't know how many we have, but to just go through them, they will really help you to learn more about this data industry and how to carry yourself in the data industry. Because anything you do with the data, if you expose someone's PII, it can be a lawsuit. You can be sued easily. And that's something we don't play with or we don't joke with. Now, we are talking about keeping our data safe. Another thing that we do to keep our data and our databases safe, we have talked about, someone is asking me what randomization, I've just said, what randomization are you talking about? Is it the same as hashing? Hashing is not the same as randomization. You know, like when I want to, in databases, I don't know if you're talking about the hashing, like the one I know in databases. Like in databases, when I'm talking about the hashing, it looks more of data encryption or data masking than randomization. Randomization is that you jumble up the characters, you jumble up or you confuse the numbers. You put them in a way that someone will not be able to know, like it is jumbled up, it is mixed up. You put the numbers in that you can have 1 to 10 and you can have some asterisks and you can have some letters. That is randomization. The data is appearing in a random manner. It is not well organized. It is not following a particular order. When I talk about hashing, it's more of like you are hiding something. When you're saying a hash, like in databases, we have something called password hash. When I want to get the password of someone, when you create, in databases, when you create a user and you give them a password, the database management system usually hashes the password in that it's like it encrypts it. It gives you other characters, like it's like you haven't, those who have learned about encryption, data encryption, or when we talk about cybersecurity, we have the encryption key and the decryption key. So it's like the numbers are hashed. The data is now hidden. Hashing is more of hiding something. So when you look at that thing, you will not be able to know what this thing is. It just gives you a number or some characters that are hidden. But randomization, things are jumbled up. Jumbled up is like they are mixed up. So that is basically the difference between randomization and hashing. And then someone is saying, so basically you do database auditing, like a CISA cipher, as a DBA, like a CISA cipher. I don't know what is a CISA cipher. I think you'll tell me more what is a CISA cipher. But we do database auditing. The auditing we do, I'll talk about it, but I haven't talked about auditing. The auditing we do in databases is like the auditing you learn about those people, the finance auditors. If you learned about finance auditors, what they do, they come to the company and then they look if you are matching the standards that are in place, and you're abiding by those standards or by those rules. It's the same way in database administration. We also do our own auditing to ensure that our databases meet the set criteria, the rules, the standards that are supposed to be there. Some of the things that we do in database auditing is, like I've told you, you ensure users don't have excess privileges. If it is a data analyst and you give them the insert privilege, you'll have to explain why you're giving a data analyst insert privilege, and their role does not involve inserting data. They don't make changes to the data. They don't add anything. Their role is to analyze. They will come and audit you. They tell you, why are you giving this person excess privileges? What reasons do you have? In fact, sometimes it can be an issue that can be put to investigation also. They have to investigate you. Why are you doing this? Some of the auditing that we do also, we make sure that our databases are using the right software that is safe and secure. Auditing is more of like they checking if you are using the set principles, you are using the set standards that are acceptable. So an example is like maybe MySQL, Microsoft SQL released MySQL version 2022 or 22, MySQL version 22. Maybe that is the latest. And then you come in your company, you're using MySQL version 10. They will now start raising exception. They'll start saying, why are you using MySQL version 10, yet the latest is 22? That is also an audit exception. That is like you are going against the audit principles accepted. You are only allowed to use certain versions of databases up to acceptable criteria, the one acceptable. Maybe if we are in 22, maybe the lowest you should use is maybe MySQL 19. If you go lower, it means your system is lacking some security features. Because when you are having database upgrade, maybe when the upgrades are coming, they come with new security features to enhance your database. So when they come and they're using an old version of a database management system that is not acceptable, that will be also a problem. So those are some of the audits we do to ensure you keep by the standards. We have many audits that we check. Another thing is like, is this database having like this? The things I'm going to talk about are in the auditing feature. So another thing we do about when keeping our database secure, I need, the questions are coming and I'm going on. Who cleans the data in the database if a data analyst can't change anything? We are going to talk about that. Who cleans the data in the database so that analyst can't change anything? In the security aspect of DBA, have you had an instance of SQL injection malicious queries? If, yes, I'm still talking about security. How did you handle it? So now you have, first of all, I'm going to talk about another thing of keeping our database secure, and it's going to answer that question of who cleans the data in the database if data analysts can't change anything. Another thing of keeping our database secure is like when you are staying in a house, or when you're staying in a house, or the president has like houses, the house at home, the house maybe in Rift Valley, and the president has the house in Nairobi, the State House. And this president also has the house in Mombasa. So this president has 3 houses. I don't want to use the word of the housing criteria. I will talk about the use of having copies of something. For data engineers, when you're deploying your data or your things like you're working with cloud, you have some data in cloud and you have some data in on-premise physically. So in databases, to keep our data secure, we usually have 3 environments where I work in. We have the user acceptance test environment. We have the development environment, and we have the production environment. Most companies, sometimes they usually have just the development environment and the production environment. For those of you who have heard of a saying, mostly software engineers usually use, do not test in production. Have you heard of such saying? Do not test in production. Who has heard of that saying? Karen has said yes. That thing works in real life. Whenever they tell you do not test in production, that is the real life we use in database administration and in most of these companies. We use that rule, do not test in production. So we have different environments. So now I've told you we have the development environment and we have the production environment. So in the development environment now, it means this is the environment where people can develop or can start making they create their applications, they do their tests before they push it to the environment that is live, the production. So you make all the mistakes in the development environment. You make all the experiments in the development environment. So in most companies now, we usually have different databases for different groups. We can have a database for data analysts and data engineers and data scientists. And when I'm making a database for data analysts and data engineers, it means if they're data analysts, they're analyzing the data, the database I'm going to create for them will be more of a data warehouse because they analyze data over a long period of time. Now I'm talking about the concepts you're learning now. Those of you who have not covered about data warehouse, you're going to cover data warehouse in data engineering. I don't know if data analysts cover data warehouse. Data warehouse, its characteristics is to keep data over a long period of time. So if the work of a data analyst is to analyze data, it means he's going to analyze trends of data over a long period of time. So it means I'll create a data warehouse for data analysts and data scientists. They analyze the data. So this data warehouse will keep huge volumes of data. And you know data warehouse is a type of databases now. Now I hope you know the way I'm explaining. It's just a type of database because we have an OLAP system and an OLTP system. OLAP, it means it is analytical. OLTP, it means it's transactional. So data analysts have the data warehouse. So this data warehouse, I'll put a data warehouse in the development environment and I'll put a data warehouse in the production environment. Now, these data analysts, they work with data engineers. Is it true? They work with data engineers hand in hand. So in this development environment now, I have the data analyst. Some companies now, in the development environment, some companies, mark the word some companies, because the data analyst makes changes to the data, maybe they are doing some cleaning. So they'll give this data analyst update access in the development environment. Remember, I'm talking about development environment. I'm not talking about production. Production is out of bounds. I'm talking about development. Some companies will give this data analyst the update rights because their work is to clean. So when you're cleaning and you're giving the true copy, the copy that is clean now, it means you are making changes. So you are giving update. You're not generating new data. You are just making changes to the new version. So it means you are getting the update privilege. So this data analyst will be given the update privilege. But Because some companies are very strict also in this development environment. You can find this data analyst does not have the update rights. They only have the select. So how does this data analyst work? So in this case, these data analysts, they have a way of, once they select the data, they extract the data. Obviously in data analysis, there is data extraction. They have the privilege to select, so they are extracting the data from the database. They can always transfer it. They have systems in place to connect things like Power BI to our database. They can always transfer this database to their Power BI environment. They do the work from Power BI. And then this work from the Power BI environment, they forward to who? They forward to the application owner. Maybe the head of their department is the head of the data warehouse. This application owner is the one who will be given the update right in that database. This application owner, their head of their department, their lead data person, is the one who will be given the update rights in the database. Or in some places, because they work with data engineers, and we know data engineers, in their work, they create databases sometimes. They also create tables in the database, data engineers. Their work also involves creation of some tables and also designing database, data engineers. In some organization, because data engineers work with data analysts, now this role of updating the data in the database, the clean data, is given to the data engineer. So the data engineer will get that thing from the data analyst, and the data engineer, because mostly they also design the database, they'll be given the right or the privilege of making the update here. And in this development environment, because data engineers, they design the database, the development environment, these data engineers will also have the rights of creating objects, the rights of selecting the data. They'll have the rights of also deleting data because they design the database. They also have the rights. It's like they have full control in the development environment, these data engineers. And because our life environment, we want it to be stable, only after that engineers have confirmed to us that the changes they have made in development environment are now okay. They have tested with their system, everything is working. Now, this data will be pushed to production. This data will be pushed to production, and they can either use their data pipelines to push to production, or they can use other things like SQL. If they are using SQL, they can use SQL. In most organizations, for production, we give very few people access, only on limited basis, the insert access or the update access. So in production, because it's secure, maybe in most environments, like in my workplace, the production, nobody has insert rights unless they want to make changes and they raise a change request. They officially ask to make a change. It is approved by the relevant people. Then this person will be given the rights on the production only to make that change. Once the change is made, they go back to only having select access. Are we together there? The person who asked about that data analysts, how they work. Now you've seen how we work with data analysts, data engineers, like that. Have you seen it? Because we want to make our production stable, we mostly don't give people insert access. And in some organizations, because they don't give people also, they can work with DBA. Now the DBA is tasked with making that change. They work with the DBA, and so the DBA is tasked with making that change in production. You only give the change that have already worked in development environment. That is when you make it in production. Okay, another question someone asked, in the security aspect of DBA, have you had an instance of SQL injection, malicious queries? If so, how did you handle it? Now, in my work experience, now as a DBA, I've not had the instance of SQL injection, but we have had some suspicious activities. And how do we ensure? Now I'll answer the question of the things we have put in place to stop or to prevent things like SQL injection and someone injecting malicious things in our data. Now I'm going to answer how we ensure we don't get that. The first thing we do in this, in safeguarding our data, making our database secure, as a DBA, first of all, when you are learning about copying something to something, you learned about Linux. Some of you covered about Linux concept. Some of you learned about creating a user in the, I don't know if you learned about creating a user in the command line in the Linux and giving them permission. Now, most of the Linux concepts, most of these things, as DBA, you need to learn about some things about system administration and some things about networking. We use the networking concepts to attack these things like SQL injection. How do we use networking concepts? Some of the basic networking concepts you should learn to keep your database secure is like, do you know what is an IP address? First of all, as a DBA, I expect you to know what is an IP address. Data engineers, I don't know if you talked about IP address when you are looking at, when you are copying files to where, and when you are, I don't know if you have learned about SSH, secure shell, evil, and secure file transfer, SFTP. So those are some of the basics. You don't have to know everything about networking. Just have to know about the basics, like what is an IP address. So when you know about what is an IP address in networking, we have something called a public IP address, and we also have something called a private IP address. So from the question I'll ask you, if you learn about something that is public, what does it mean? What is the difference between public and private? What is the difference between public and private? For those of you who don't know what is a public IP address and private IP address, you will understand from this concept. From the word private and public, what's the difference? The general meaning in English. The general meaning in English. I will answer you, Leslie, the backups. In Garcia, I talked about the user permissions and access control. When I was talking, when I was saying you learn about their roles, and you now know this one, I'll give them access to select only, to insert only. I talked about that, I guess. Joseph has said access to all versus restricted access, public versus private. Yes. Public versus private, that is the general meaning in English. So, as a DBA, those are some of the security, the networking concept you should know. You should just know, you are expected to know a public IP and a private IP. So, in the database administration, because you want the databases to be accessed from anywhere, from any machine, in the LuxDevHQ Academy, when you are installing database management system, you installed in your machines Postgres. Is it true? Or you installed MySQL, or you installed dbeaver in your machines. You installed in your machines, but in the work environment, we don't install things in the machine because if Dennis has installed Postgres in his machine, it means when Dennis creates a database in his Postgres that is in his machine, Ngugi will have to go to the machine that Dennis has to log in into the database. Is it true? If Dennis has installed Postgres or a database in his machine locally, for Ngugi to get to that database, it means Ngugi will have to log in the Dennis machine, the machine that is owned by Dennis. So it means Ngugi will not be able to access this database unless he goes to the machine that Dennis has installed the database. Is it true? If Dennis has installed, yes. Now in the real world now, this is not how it works. In the real world, this is not how it works. We don't install databases in people's machine because these are company databases. And we don't have only one user in a database. You can have like 1,000 users in the same database. And how will you ensure these 1,000 users, they access the same database at the same time or anytime they want? So we have things called servers in networking. We have things called servers. Server is like a virtual machine. For those data engineers, I think you have learned about servers or you are going to learn about servers when you are learning about SSH and IP address. So a server is like a virtual machine. A virtual means you cannot touch it. So it means in that server, that's where we install our database. And then we give people access to the server. So for you to access the database, you need access in the server. You need to be created in the server. You need to be as user in the server. And that is where we have now IP address. A server is always identified by an IP address. For a server to be there, it needs an IP address. So we usually create, whenever you create a database, before you create, you need to make sure you have a server. And this server is identified by an IP address. And for you to make sure that your server is secure, in the database world, we don't use public IP address because public can be accessed by anyone. So we use private IP address, something that is not accessed by anyone. And then in the IP address, we also have the default port and non-default port. It is like when I say what is the default food for Kenya, you'd say the default food is ugali. The food that every Kenyan eats, that is the default food for Kenya, it's ugali. So anyone knows this is the default food for Kenya. So in databases, we have ports. Each IP address has a port. In databases, to keep your database secure, you don't use the default port. You now customize your own port. When you are a database administrator or a data engineer, if you are making a database and you store it in port 22, I will beat you up. Port 22 is always a default port for most IP addresses. Port 22. Don't use port 22. It is always a default port. Like in Postgres, we have a default port also. Those of you who have worked with Postgres database management system, now I'm talking as a DBA. In Postgres, we have a default port. Those of you who have worked with Postgres, what is the default port? Each database management system has a default port. Postgres has 5432. Yes, Shakila said. So most of you who have installed Postgres in your machine, you're using port 5432. And then I find you in the server that you are sharing with everyone, you have put default port 5432. How is your Postgres secure? It is not secure because everyone knows it is the default port. An attacker can attack it. It's the same way now. I'm answering your question now. I'm answering your question, how do you prevent SQL injection? So when a hacker wants to attack us, they will try different ways of attacking us. So they know the default port is this. So they know port 22 is mostly the default port for most servers. So the attacker will try accessing our system using port 22. And also, we also have public IP addresses. Our attacker will try accessing our database using a public IP address. So as a DBA, you should use common sense and know when I'm making this database, I need to make sure the server or the server that is hosted, the IP address is not public and the port is not default. And then if I'm using Postgres, it means my database management system Postgres is not supposed to use a default port. It should use 5432. That is one way of preventing an attacker from attacking you, because he will not know the IP address, he will not guess it easily, and he will not guess the port easily. It is hidden. And another thing, by the way, when we are creating users in the database, we don't share IP address and ports with them. That is something a DBA knows. As a DBA, we only give them the database name and their username and their password. Database users will work in a company even for 20 years and they will not know our IP address. They will not know where we are hosting. They should not know where you are living. Nobody should know where you are living. You should live privately the same way. Nobody should know where you are hosting your database. Even your CEO should not know where your database is hosted, even if he's the head and he can fire you. He should not know. He should not know even the name of your database, because as a CEO should not know a database name. Their work is not to know. Now, if you're working as a maybe a salesperson is accessing the database, I give them the database name and the username and the password they should use. I not give them the IP address and the port. Another way you can attack this SQL injection, when you're creating our servers, now we have the server that is private and we have the port that is not default. Now, in networking, we have things called firewall. For those of you, if I put a wall between Gerald and Ngugi, it means Gerald will not go to Ngugi's house. Ngugi will not cross over to Gerald's house. There is a wall. So that is a firewall. In database administration, we have firewalls. So it means when I'm creating a user or I'm creating my database, it means I'm only going to give them access to get to my database from certain environments. It means if we are logging into the database from a jump server or from a server called server A, when I create you in the database, I will only allow you to access this database from server A. If you are in server B, I will stop you from accessing my database. I'll put a firewall. And I say anything that is not coming from server A, they will not get into my database. If you are not coming from server A, server A is like the source where you are coming from. And my database is the destination, my server destination, the server is, the database is. So in database administration, we don't allow you to connect to a database from just any environment. You need to allow specific environments to connect to a database. So it means if you are connecting from a server called server A or from an IP address called 10.20, you will only be allowed to access our database from server A. When you go to server B and you try to access the database, you will not get into the database. There will be a firewall put in place. So that is another feature we put into place. We have existence of firewalls. So it means any place, anything that you connect from, we need to allow it. If we have not allowed you to get into a database from server B, maybe the attacker is connecting from an IP address we don't understand, from a host we don't know. This host is unknown from us. It will not reach our database. There'll be a firewall. Unless we remove the firewall, that's when they'll go through and get to our database. So we have firewalls in place. And another thing to do that, we work with database cybersecurity team. The cybersecurity team they usually monitor all our systems 24/7. They monitor. When they see suspicious activities, they put an alert. They put an alert, they investigate, they alert it. There is 24/7 monitoring by the cybersecurity team of all our systems. So those are some of the security aspects we put in place to prevent things like SQL, injection, and malicious queries. And another thing, malicious queries now, when you learn, another feature that we put in place to prevent SQL injection and malicious queries, those of you who are going to learn about databases, data engineers, data analysts, data scientists. I don't know if data scientists learn SQL, but I know data analysts and data engineers learn SQL. So when you're going to learn about databases, you're going to learn about things called views. Or for those of you who have learned about views, have you learned about views? Have you learned about views? Eh? Yes. Now, those who have learned about views, now this is how we apply real life application of views in my work. Or those of you who will be creating database things, like data engineers who will be creating databases and creating objects, it is always advisable that people in your company work on views. You don't give them direct access to the tables. If you are a good database administrator or a database engineer or a data engineer, or if you are concerned with giving people access privilege, it is always advised that you make sure these people, you don't give them direct access to the tables. You create something like a replica of the table or a subset of the table, and you give them access to that table. You create a view for them and you give them access to the view. So they'll be working on this view. So it means when someone attacks your database, maybe they have been able to reach your database, they'll be able to attack the view. Maybe someone exposed the IP address when he was connecting to the view, this data engineer. He exposed the IP address to the attackers, and this data engineer has access to a view. So this view is the one he's working with. He does not have direct access to the main tables. So when that attacker attacks, they'll get into the account of this data engineer, and they'll be able to add some malicious queries to that view. So that view will be affected, but our main table will still remain stable. It will remain protected. That is some of the application of the views we can use to prevent that. Another use we use for views is maybe now we have different departments, and these different departments, they do different work. The data analysts works on the sales column, and the software engineer maybe works on the customer column. They work on the same table, but they work on different columns. So because I want to protect the main table so that these two people do not tamper with the main table, I will create different views for this data analyst and a different view for software engineer. So the software engineer will be in charge of making changes only to the view that is owns. So it means when they disrupt their view, maybe they make damages there, it will not affect our main table. Or maybe a view can also be used to hide data that someone should not see. So I can create a view, and I only give this view, I create the columns that a software engineer should see. The columns that this software engineer should not see in the table, I will not include them in the view. So I am hiding important data or sensitive data from this software engineer by using a view. I will only give them a view that contains the columns they need. The columns that they do not need, I will not include them in the view. That is another application we use for views in our daily work. Yeah, you've learned about views. Now you have seen how you can use view in real life. Now I was answering the question. At access to all buses, are you responsible for how do you handle user permissions and access control? I already talked about that, and I've also talked about that in Garcia. To handle user permissions and access control, first of all, we understand the role of this user, their work. Once you understand their work, you give them permissions according to their work. If they are software engineers, give them permissions that are only helping them to do their software engineering work. Do not give excess permission. And another access control I've talked about, we prevent you from logging in from unidentified servers or unidentified environments. If you are logging from an environment you have not allowed, we'll put a firewall, you'll not log into the database. You are restricted to only access the database from an environment we trust. And another access control, we give users passwords and username. Passwords are never shared. And another access control that we put in place is that we usually force users to renew their passwords every after 30 days. Because someone can go to the database and can find your username and password and can use them for malicious activities. So we usually make sure every user changes their password in the database after every 30 days. After 30 days, we have put scripts in place to automate things to ensure that after 30 days, your password will expire and you have to change. That is another access control and a security feature. Yes. Are you responsible for creating data backups? And can you describe the process of how data is backed up? Yes, my dear Leslie. Yes, as a database administrator, my work is to make sure that our database is secure and safe from any attack. If I am managing the data in the company, it means I need to make sure we don't lose data. A database administrator is like the watchman in your company. He's like the watchman. The way you have the watchman or the gate man at the gate, they keep you safe. They make sure you don't get attacked. They make sure nobody steals from you. That is the same way as a database administrator. I make sure this data is not leaked, it is not stolen, it is not lost. So if I don't want my data to get lost as a database administrator, we usually do regular backups of our data. We do regular daily backups. By the way, we have daily backups and we don't do manual backups. I will tell you now, as a DBA, we use the way you have told, you've learned about scripting. Scripting is like writing some jobs, automating some tasks. Because backups are done every day, I will not be logging into the database every day and doing the manual backup. We have like more than 50 databases in our company. And we have databases that are huge in terabytes. Different database has different work. I cannot manually log into each of these database every day, like more than 50 database every day and start doing manual backup. That's where now you have to learn the concept about scripting. As a database administrator, you need to learn about scripting or some automation. In that, those of you who learned about Linux, the data engineers, I don't know if data analysts have learned some Linux. As a database administrator, you should learn Linux by fire, by force. There is no shortcut. You cannot work as a database administrator without Linux. You just have to learn. Because we use Linux, in the Linux, we have things called scripting. And we have something called, we have some languages for scripting. We have shell scripting. And we have also Bash. And we also have Python can also be a scripting language. Python can be used to write some scripts. So when you are writing a script, it's like you are constructing a job. In that job, you make sure that job is like you are automating your tasks. You write a query that will advise the database, will tell the database, do backup every day at 12 a.m. So it means when you write a script, this script will run every day at 12 a.m. It will perform a backup of your database. So as a database administrator, if you want to become a database administrator, you should learn about scripting. Learn one particular scripting language.
You can learn shell scripting. For those who have worked with Linux, you can learn shell scripting. We mostly use it in my work. And also, for those of you who work the way I told you, don't confuse MySQL and MS SQL. For MS SQL people, MS SQL, we have something called PowerShell. PowerShell is a scripting thing also. But PowerShell is not very common. The most common we use is shell scripting. And some people these days, they have started using some DBAs. They are now going to Python scripting. Some DBAs these days, they are going to Python scripting. So you get some DBA roles these days, they tell you, you need to be good in scripting languages, maybe shell scripting or Python scripting. But when you have learned Linux, I expect you to learn about shell scripting. You just have to know shell scripting. And then a cron job, yes. We also have, no, scripting is not writing a cron job. You can write a script to schedule some things, but a cron job, it's almost the same, but they're not the same. Scripting is different from a cron job. Scripting is just scripting, but a cron job now is the job now, the job that is running. The job, a cron job now is that job that you have advised your script to run. Now you have told the script that task that you have told your script to run, you have told your script to do every after some days. Maybe you have told your script to run a backup every after 30 days. Now you are creating a cron job. Now cron job now is the task. The task now. The way job is like a task is work. Now that job will now, the way Shakila said, the job executes the script. Now the job, now the task now. You schedule the job to run or the script to run. So the task is the job, but scripting is the writing now, coming up with that thing, the program. Coming up with the program is scripting. Writing those commands to come up with the program is scripting. Then you tell that job to run, it executes. Now the task now. The task is the job. The task is the job. When it runs the whole of that script, when that script has run, that is the job. You tell the job for that task will be running after every 12 a.m. That thing that will be running is the job now. That thing that will be running every 12 a.m. If it is a backup, it means you have created a cron job for doing backup. If that task is for deleting users, it means I don't use tools. I use shell scripting. Leslie, I've just talked about scripting. In my work, I don't use Airflow. In my work as a DBA, as DBAs, we don't use Airflow. As DBAs, we use scripting languages to schedule our jobs. We don't use other tools. We use scripting languages. We work with command line. We generally work with command line as DBAs. That's why I've told as a DBA, you must just know Linux. There is no shortcut as a DBA, especially if you're becoming a DBA for Oracle, those things. As a DBA, you'll have to automate some tasks. And if you want to automate these tasks, you don't want to do them manually as a DBA, you just have to learn Linux. And when we learn Linux, we learn about shell scripting. And those shell scripting are the ones which create our jobs. We use them to create our cron jobs. We don't use Airflow as DBAs, but data engineers, they use things like Airflow. As DBAs, we don't use those things. We don't use those tools. We only use shell scripting. Now, I have understood scripting is writing good. Now Leslie has understood. What about cron jobs? Yes, cron jobs, we use cron tabs. Yes, cron job, we use cron tabs. So you create the cron and you write the script inside there. And you schedule the job to run every after 1 year or every after 2 months. That task that is running is the job, the task. The execution is the job, the task. The task is the job. If it is a backup, now it is the job for doing a backup. Yes. And then does the view work like Git cloning a repo, then creating a branch? Then once you finish modifying the DB, you merge the The view does not work as a Git cloning. As Git cloning a repo, then creating a branch. Then once you finish modifying the DB, you merge the branches to a single file. No, A view is never merged to a single file, by the way. A view exists separately from the main table, first of all. And when you have made changes to the view, we don't merge the changes in the view to match the primary. We don't merge like they become one. You can maybe check the things that are in the view if you want to transfer them to the job, to the database, the main table. You can do an insert command to the table and you make the data to be like the one in the view, but we don't merge. And then also, a view cannot work like JIT cloning, because a JIT cloning, it's like you clone the copy of the original JIT, the original repo, and you have it in your database or in your machine, the copy. But a view is not necessarily a copy. You can create a view that has some missing data from the original table. The way I talked about this, when I was saying about using a view in the real life to ensure that I hide some columns from some users. When I'm hiding some columns from my users, it means this view does not have all the columns that the original table has. It means I can have a view that has 2 columns and the original table has 10 columns. So you see, a view cannot be like something like you JIT clone. JIT clone, you clone the copy. It is a photocopy of the original. But a view is not necessarily a photocopy of the original. A view, you customize it. You can make it to have maybe only 1 column. You can make it to have only 10 rows. You use a view to control how people get access to your data. A view is mostly used for access control. That is the main feature of a view, the main use case of a view in databases. So it is not necessarily a copy of the original table. A view can easily be an opposite of the original table. A view can have 2 columns and you find the original table has maybe 30 columns. So it cannot be like the same as JIT cloning. Are we together? Higher. How long does it take to learn these skills? I will not put a time frame. I just say you put in the work and it is more. Once I will talk about the skills you need to become a DBA. I will talk about it. Hey, now what did I say? Hey, I said about we do safeguarding. I said about we do patching. And then also another thing, I talked about we have the development environment and the production environment. Another thing that we do now, you remember when you are creating your nini, when you are becoming, those of you who have responsible parents, we have your original birth certificate and your mother did photocopy of your birth certificate. So the photocopy of the birth certificate is the one you have it. The original is with your mother or with your father. The same way now, I will not use it as original and photocopy, but now, what will I say now? We in databases, I want to use a real world example, but I hope you'll understand without the real world example. In databases, now we usually have replicas of the original database. We have replicas of the original database in databases, in that we have copies of the original databases stored in different environments. We have copies of the original database stored in different environments. In that, when we create our database in server A, the database is running in server A, we will create a replica of this database in a different environment, server B. We will create a replica of this same database in a different environment called server B. So that in case, now it works like now the backup. Yes, backup. Yeah, the thing is like it works like the backup. The way when you are working with machines, and Google, in your phone, you have Google Cloud. Yes, you have Google Cloud in your phone. They usually tell you, do not, when you store your contacts in your phone, and when you lose your phone, to ensure you don't lose your contacts, make sure you save your contacts in Google Cloud. They usually tell you, save your contacts in Google Cloud. It's the same way database now. The same way. You want me to speak like a Nigerian. Now it's the same way. In databases also, we have replicas of the original database. So we have the copy of the original database in a different environment in server B. So if the database is running in server E, the primary database is running in server A. In server B, we'll have exact copy of that database in server B, so that in case something happens to the very original environment, in case something happens, you will automatically switch to server B and you will not lose your data. It's the same way when you lose your phone and you had saved your contacts in Google Cloud, you will still get back your phone contacts. It's the same way now. We have database replication. We call it database replication. So we usually have copies that database stored, the same database is stored in different servers. Now I'm not talking about the development and the production environment. These different servers, they are both like production. They are production because they're exact copies. They're exact copies and they have replica of the other. Like what is, if you make a change in server A, it will automatically appear in server B. They are copying each other. They are like photocopying. Once you do something here, it photocopies to the other. They run in parallel. So in case your main environment, your main server A goes down, server B will automatically come up. It's like a backup generator. When you lose electricity in your home, steamers, when the lights goes off, the backup generator automatically fires up without you doing anything. It's the same way with replication in database. In database replication, to ensure that we don't lose our data as DBA, we usually construct database replication. As a DBA, when you are creating a database, you have to make sure each database has a replica environment. So in the database world, we usually call the main environment as the primary environment, and the replica environment, we call it the secondary or the disaster recovery. Some people will call it disaster recovery environment, DR, and others will call it the secondary environment. So it works as a generator. When you have a backup generator in home, electricity, when it goes off, the backup starts. Before you do anything, it starts automatically. It's the same way when something happens to our server A, the replica environment will automatically start running and our database will not lose our data. So maybe an attacker will attack, or maybe our data server A will go down, it will be destroyed, server B will automatically come up, and they are hosted in different environments. Key word is they are hosted in different environments. They are different environments with different resources, different CPU, like that. Each of them, they don't share the environment. They are separate from each other. We are together there. That's how we prevent loss of data or keep our database secure. How long that I will talk about the skills you need. That is replication of databases. Yes, I've talked about replication. I've just been talking about that. So what's the difference between database replication and backups? Hey, my dear. Database replication and backup now. Database replication and backup. A backup now. A backup, you are just doing a photocopy of the database. Or backup is, and then a backup, you have to do it like every day. It has to be done every day. It is a task that has to be done. It's like a backup now is the data. Yeah. Backup involves the data. We are making sure that our data is there throughout the backup. We have a copy of it somewhere. In replication now, it is more of the system. Now I'll have you to think like a DBA now. Backup, you are backing up the data. Data is the information, my dear. The information. Replication now, we are talking about the infrastructure, the system. In replication, we have two separate environments now. When you're doing a database backup, you are not having different environments. You're doing a database backup, you're doing it in the primary environment, HAPO, there and there, one environment. You can do a database backup without having a replica server, without having a replica environment, and backup will still take place. But a replication is like you have a different environment from the main one. You know, when you have replication and you have a database backup in the server A, when server A goes down environment A, it means, and you don't have a replica, your backup will also go off, my dear. That's the difference. That's the difference. If you have a backup in server A and you lose your database, it has gone like that. Your database has been lost, your environment has been lost, you cannot recover. Even if you have a database backup somewhere, you have stored it in your machine, that backup, how will you restore it? You'll have to recreate a data, because for you to use a backup, now I'm talking as a DBA, for you to use a backup, you have to restore it. To restore a backup, it means there should be a database that is existing. That database is existing, and then you restore the backup there. You restore it, you update the data. But now, if you have a backup and you only have server A, you lose server A, it means you have lost your database now. How will you restore this backup? You don't have an existing database. It means you have to go back and create a database. But now in replication, I've told you there are two different environments. If you have server A and server B, server A, when it goes down the environment, server B has the database is still there. Even if there was no backup, server B will continue running. The database is there. But if there is no replication, you have only server A, you are depending on it, and you have a backup, yes, server A will go down. So it means your environment has gone off. You have lost. When your environment goes off, now I want you to think. An environment has CPU. The way your machine has CPU, it has RAM, it has memory. Now your memory has gone. You have lost your memory. You have lost your CPU. Now you have to think now. I want you to understand what is a backup and what is a replication. If you lose server A, it means in your machine, you usually have a RAM. A server is like a machine. You have a RAM, you have a memory, you have a CPU, you have disks. Your disks have gone. Your memory has gone. Your CPU have gone. You are starting from zero. You are buying a new laptop now. You are buying a new machine. Now server A, when it goes, you have lost everything. You have to start installing CPU. You have to start installing RAM. You have to start installing databases. Now that backup will not even help you, because even you have to create a database again before it. Now, that's the importance of replication now. When you have replication, you don't lose everything. Server A, when it goes lost, server B is there. You have still, this server B has RAM. It is like a machine. It has a RAM. It has a memory. It has a CPU. It has disks. You're not starting from square zero. Now you see now, you can have a backup, but you don't have replication. You are doing nothing as a DBA. You'll be fired because you don't have a disaster recovery in place. You don't have a backup generator. Now you understand the difference between a database backup and replication. Replication. Hey. So why is it? Does sharding also prevent loss of data? How is it different from Hey, naongea, I'm speaking like someone from Someone has said, does sharding also prevent, Someone has said, does sharding also prevent database loss? How is it different from database replication? Now you see, it's different from replication. Now, when you talk about sharding, first of all, I want you to explain yourself, because you will answer yourself this question even before I answer. Before I answer, you will answer yourself. The person who asked is called, even someone has answered it, Dennis. Do you know what sharding is? Dennis, what is sharding? From the explanation of sharding, you will know the difference between it and replication. You will answer yourself. Dennis, you are just going to answer yourself when you answer the meaning of sharding. What is sharding?
For me, I needed it was partitioning database, like storing different parts. If you have a database from letter A to maybe J, you take from letter A to C, put that one in one location, from D to F in another location.
Good. You have
but now
answered
the issue was, someone mentioned it in the same discussion as replication.
Sharding is not, see, you have answered yourself, in fact.
Oh, someone has answered. Yeah, Shakil Mburu.
Good. Yeah, even you have answered yourself before even Shakil has answered, you have answered yourself. The meaning of sharding will tell you the difference between sharding and replication. Once you know the meaning, it will just tell you the difference. You have just told yourself you are dividing into parts. You are dividing. But replication is not dividing, my dear. And most of the things, why, the reason why, another importance of sharding, the reason why they do sharding, sharding is not mostly to achieve higher availability or to disaster recovery. In databases, mostly, sharding is mostly used to increase the speed of, like, to optimize our database. You've learned about database optimization, yeah? When you are a DBA or a data engineer, you learn about database optimization. To optimize something is to make something effective, to make it fast, to go fast, or to work it better. So when you subdivide a database into small bits, it means if you're working on a transactional database for what? A transactional database for getting the customer data. And this database is very huge. It is in terabytes. Now I want you to understand the importance of sharding. It's not to ensure there is no data loss. The importance of sharding is mostly used in ensuring that there is optimization of database, or to ensure that resources are not overutilized. So when you are sharding, you are dividing into small bits. So it means when I want database and I want a data that is in maybe shard A. Shard A is maybe from row A, row 1 to row 20. I will not go to shard B. I will just go and select everything from shard A. So if I'm selecting, you know how SQL works. Now I'm telling you're going back to SQL. Select everything. It means go over. When you say select everything, it means SQL will go through the whole database, each row one by one. This is how SQL works now. When you are saying select everything from table A, it means SQL will start going through each row. If there are 10,000 rows, SQL will go through 10,000 rows before it gives you a data. So it means if you have sharding and you have shard A, B up to D, shard A, maybe it's from row 1 to 20, shard B is from row 2 to 30. And the information you want is within row 1 to 20. So it is in shard A. So it means our database will automatically go to shard A and look for this information from shard A. It will not scan the table that is terabytes, that it has 10,000 rows. When it is in one big table, one big database or one big table, it means it will have to go through all the 10,000 rows one by one. So it will waste a lot of time to give you a data. For you to go through 10,000 rows, it means you'll take a long period of time before you give me the result. And I want result fast. So some data engineers or database engineers, they usually say, now, we want our system to be giving us result fast. So I'm going to implement database sharding. I will subdivide these things into small bits so that when I'm querying my database and this SQL will recognize this data is in shard C, it will now not go and start scanning the whole table. It will just go to shard C and scan the rows in shard C. If shard C has 50 rows now, it will go through 50 rows and give you the results, instead of going through a big table, which is 10,000 rows, and giving the results. So it means traversing 50 rows is faster than going through 10,000 rows. So sharding helps in optimization, and it also helps in resource utilization, to ensure your resources are not overutilized. The resources are not overutilized because if we have big database running in a certain server, it is very huge. It means there are a lot of activities taking place here in this big database. So once the data is huge, it means the data also, when you're creating a database, you usually give it memory, CPU, like that. So when it is huge, it is going to use a lot of resources. And when your database is having some resource constraints, maybe the resources are not enough, your database will be slow. If resources are not enough, your database will be slow. The same way your machine, if it has low RAM or low memory, it will start slowing down. It will start slowing down. It will start slowing down the same way. So that's why we have some sharding, because we want to reduce the stress on our resources. We want to reduce the stress on our resources. By resources, I'm talking about RAM, CPU, those things. If the resources are not stressed, it means our database will work optimally. It has enough resources, so it will not be slow. So that is another thing. Sharding helps us to prevent resource constraints. So that is database optimization. As a data engineer, you should learn some things about database optimization. As a DBA, you must just know what is database optimization and the importance. And if you are creating databases and you are creating objects in databases, it is good to learn about database optimization, because I will hire you if you know some concepts about database optimization. It means if you can optimize a database, it will not use a lot of resources. And if you are optimizing it, it means if resources, resources are expensive, especially those data engineers that work with cloud systems, you work with Azure, you work with the AWS, you pay according to the resources you use. So if your database is using a lot of resources, it means you will be paying a lot of money for AWS and Azure. The same way data analysts, when you are writing your queries, data analyst, when you're working as a data analyst, when you're writing your queries, you need to make sure you write a query in a way that it is optimized. Another thing I usually advise people as data analysts, always avoid using select all. Avoid using select all unless it is necessary. Unless it is necessary, because select all is always resource intensive. It uses a lot of resources. It makes the database to scan the whole table, and the resources will be used a lot, and you'll pay a lot of money when you are hosting your database in cloud. And you'll realize now, if you want to know the difference between a beginner and a senior, when a beginner comes to the company, we were paying $1,000 per month for cloud. Now this beginner came, now we are paying $2,000, because this data analyst is not writing optimized queries. Our queries are not optimized. They are using a lot of resources. So data analysts learn about optimization of their queries also. Learn how to write queries in a way that they are optimized. But when you are starting, you will learn along the way. Some data analysts start when they don't know this, but they learn from the job. But it's good. It's good to learn. It's good to learn. So, hope you have learned that sharding. So what's the difference? Is in your experience, are most database on premise or cloud hosted? Since you talked about having replicas hosted in different, and if so, are there necessary the BX keys? Yes, in our database, we have systems that are cloud and we have systems that are hosted on premise. In the on-premise database, we have some databases that are generally on premise, purely on premise. Especially when you learned about, I like teaching this concept of data warehouse. When I teach the concept of data warehouse, that's when I usually talk about the difference between cloud and on-premise, and the reason why companies choose cloud and the reason why some companies prefer on-premise. When you are going to learn about data warehouse, you people, data engineers, or data analysts or data scientists, when you're going to learn about this, we have different types of data warehouse. We have cloud data warehouse, we have on-premise. And you're going to realize we have some reasons why the company will decide to go fully on-premise. One of the reasons is that when you are going to cloud, it means you don't have full control of your data. You should put that in mind. When you're going to cloud, you don't have full control of your data. It means a third party has control of your data. And most companies, if they want full control of their data, they don't want to expose their data to third parties. They prefer on-premise. Some companies, when they know their account data is very sensitive and maybe they want full control, they don't want to expose their data to other people, to third parties like the cloud providers. They decide to go on-premise. That is one of the reasons a company will choose on-premise over cloud. So you need to know, a company will only choose on-premise or cloud according to what they need to acquire or according to what they need to achieve. maybe this company, maybe they do not want to manage the database. They want only other people to manage for them. They don't have enough people or enough resources. They'll put cloud. Or maybe they want a backup strategy in that when the on-premise environment is attacked by calamities like earthquake, when the on-premise environment is attacked by calamities like earthquake, we will not lose all our data. We'll have something to go back to. So they'll choose also to have a copy of their database in cloud, so that in case the on-premise is tampered with or there is fire outbreak, they'll have the cloud. So now I've told you the reason why. Some companies will prefer cloud, some companies will prefer on-premise according to what they want to achieve. This one mostly depends on the company. If they don't want people to have access to their data, they want full control, they will not go to cloud. If maybe they want to prevent calamities from happening and losing their data, they can choose cloud, so that in case something happens like earthquake or floods, they'll still have their data. So different companies have different reasons for choosing cloud or on-premise. In my company, we have some databases that are more mainly on-premise, they're not on cloud. And then we have some databases that are on cloud. Okay? And different databases, they perform different work. We have some database that maybe they are used for customer data only. And they have some database, maybe it is used maybe for, like we have database for mobile banking. We have database maybe for vendors. We have database for Western Union. Different database has different works. So we can decide maybe the data in the Western Union, it can go on cloud. Maybe the data that is used in customer transaction, we don't want it to go in cloud. It has PII data. I don't want to expose my PII data to cloud providers. I will make sure it is on premise only, and I'll have replicas of this database on premise. So it means I will have replica A in the data center at Nyali or in Westlands. Replica B will have a data center in USA. Replica C will have data center in Mombasa. Are you getting me? Yes. Now you know. Thanks, that's clear now. How do you handle latency in databases? Latency is like network. Mostly we look at the network. We usually work, the latency that I know is the network latency, unless you're talking about other latency. Me, I'm talking about the network latency. That is the one I understand as a DB. Network latency is like that one we are looking at how the database can easily be accessed by the network and how it can easily, you can SSH to it easily. There's always traffic going through. There's nothing hindering from traffic. We work with network providers, network administrators. In our company, we have network administrators. So, and then also as a DBA, you have to know some networking concept. Like you have to know what is SSH. When a server is not reachable, I can SSH to it to check for network latency or network drops. If there are network issues, intermittent network, how I handle it. When I see I'm SSHing, I cannot reach the IP address. I can try maybe to go to the network people to see if there is a firewall. I can check if there's a firewall. If there's no firewall, now I go and work with the network admins to check on that issue. Will you share your screen and would you share your screen and demonstrate what? Mimi hata sioni screen. Mimi hata niko kwa simu. Oh, there's a DB replica. I'm using my phone, but that's why you could not see me. And I'm in the bedroom. I'm not in the living room. Does a DB replicate us? And I don't want people to see my bedroom. Maybe I have a big doll that is yellow. Okay, does a DB replicate as often as he or she backs up? A DB does not replicate. Replication is done. Replication is not done manually. Replication happens every time. You know, replication happens every seconds, my dear. Grace, a database replica, it receives changes every time. It receives, in database replication, we have things called logs. A change in a database is stored in a log. We have database logs. So all the changes that are happening in a database in real time, they are transferred to the replica. So if you're making a change in the database now, we have 10 people making the changes now. Every minute the database is collecting the logs. It's collecting the changes. It happens every second. It is something, it is automated. Once when you're a DBA and you create a replica, you create it in a way that it is automated in that you usually instruct a script. It's like a script you put in place, and then that replica will be collecting the logs every time, every second. It happens every microsecond then, because any changes that are happening in the database, they are received in real time. That is the use of the replica. We don't want, I talked about the database replication on LinkedIn, how to manage database replication issues. A replica receives changes in real time. Any change that is happening every second, the replica is receiving. So this is not something that I do manually, Grace. This is something that is, once I create the replica, it is automated. So it happens every second because we don't want to lose any data. As a DBA, your work is to make sure your data is there 24/7, it is not lost. You are the watchman of the data. You have to keep our data safe. So the replica collects logs. The database logs are database changes. Changes are happening in the database every second. This one is not like backups. Backups, you are scheduled because you don't want, a backup is like a job. It happens in the server that is running the database. So we don't want to overwhelm our database because every job that is happening, every activity that's happening in the database, it is using the resources, the CPU, the memory. And you don't want to overwhelm the database. Maybe the database is busy during the day. As DBAs mostly perform the backups when it is at night, at midnight, because database backups are always heavy and they consume resources also. We don't want to affect the database during the day when it is active because it will make the resources to be constrained and the database will start being slow maybe. So backups are scheduled, like they will happen once every day, like every midnight. We have a backup of our database every midnight. So they happen like once. But replication, it happens in real time, every second. Every second. I will help you together, Grace. What practical projects will make a student stand out when applying for database administration roles? Practical projects, the way you people at LuxDev, you have learned about creation of users in a server, SSHing into a server, copying files into a server, creating a user in the database, granting permissions. Another practical thing you can do is like you can simulate, you can create, if you can also do like database replication. You can construct a replica, but when I was starting my career as a DBA, I did not have that project of constructing a replica, but things like, you should know things like backup and recovery, how to recover a database. Maybe it has lost. You can delete your database and explain, you can do a demonstration of how you reclaimed it from the database, you recover the data. Mostly Linux command line, you should just know. That is more of system administration. But there, as a DBA, you need to learn some concept about system administration. System administration is when you are creating a user in the server. Those are system administration things. DBAs, we create users in the server. We manage permissions on the files. File permission, you have learned it at LuxDev. As DBA, you should know that. Demonstrate that in your projects, how you have learned about file permission. Move command, remove command. Those things, learn about those. Those are very important. As DBA, you'll be learn. That's why I said as a DBA, you should just learn Linux. No Linux by force, by fire, by force. And those commands for managing permissions, file permission, SSH, secure copy, file transfer, those ones. And then always, as a DBA, obvious, SQL is the king of DBA. If you don't know SQL, you cannot be a DBA. Just learn SQL. You have to learn SQL, you have to love it by force. Hey, and then what is the entry level salary for a DBA in Kenya? That one depends per company. The entry level salary depends per company. We have companies, it depends on the company, by the way. Now that one I cannot say. So your work is when you just get your job as a DBA, or when you are interested in certain company, the good thing is always to research. Just research. You can always ask the people on LinkedIn who have worked. I always prefer asking the people who have worked before in that company. Maybe because someone who is there can lie to you. They don't want to risk their job. We also always have like salary and disclosure agreement in some companies. So maybe someone left the company, you can ask them how these things were. And then you can check Glassdoor also. Is it Glassdoor? People check Glassdoor, yeah. Always do your research, and even you can ask friends. People in the industry know these things. Just ask friends. When you're interested in a certain company, ask people, how are these? People will always tell you. People will always tell you. So the salary depends on the company, each company. What entry-level roles gear you up towards DBA roles? Yeah. A system admin can easily transition to a DBA because you have worked with Linux command line. We have worked with the terminal. Also, when you have worked with SQL, if you have worked with SQL as a developer entry level and you have created some databases, you can become a DBA. Also, as a data analyst, if you are good in data analysts can also become DBA if they are good in database optimization, because database optimization will be a key skill in DBA. I don't see it going anywhere. And it is a skill that everyone should know about. A DBA should just know about optimization. If you are good in some optimization, and also when you now start to learn about some scripting, you're good in scripting, you can get into some entry-level DBA. The main thing, just learn SQL. Master SQL and then learn some optimization of the database and access control also. Then the basic of what is an IP. Just know what is an IP, what is public IP, what is private IP. They will not ask you many things about networking because you're not a network admin, but just know the basics. So SQL you have to master, then learn how to optimize some database, because at a DBA you have to know how to optimize the database. Because most work with data engineers, software engineers, we find a software engineer is complaining, is calling us, we usually support them. They call us, the database is slow, DBS, the database is slow. They write emails, they complain, the database is slow, the application is not working. When you come and you check, you look at the database, you find this person was running a query, and you realize that software engineer wrote a query, or that data analyst wrote a query that is not optimized. So the query that is supposed to get the results within 1 second, it's taking 1 hour to run. Now you realize this person has not optimized the query. So as a DBA, you come in and you help that person. You realize the problem, you optimize it. And then you make your database to be fast now, or the query will run fast. What are the core concepts that one should grasp and basic skills one should have before? I've said the core skills, SQL. Most database management system in most countries, they use SQL. SQL you must master. Hakuna shortcut, no shortcut. Another skill as a DBA, Linux. Just master Linux. Learn Linux. Learn some scripting language. In the most DBAs, they use shell scripting. Most DBAs. These days, we have some DBAs that have started using Python, but in my company, most DBAs don't use Python, because when you look at shell scripting versus Python as DBAs mostly, when you look at the way they are running, when someone writes a script in Python and someone writes a script in shell, the Python script would be slower than the shell scripting. And you want our services to be fast, and you want to optimize our database. Mostly as DBAs, we don't use Python scripting, we use shell scripting. So learn Linux, learn shell scripting. SQL is compulsory. Hakuna shortcut. Once you know SQL and you know Linux and shell scripting, or you know Linux and you know SQL concept of managing files access, managing SSH, know how to SSH to a different server, how to copy files, how to take backup of files. Now, not backup of database, backup of a file. Once you know those concepts in the Linux and you know SQL and the Linux, you're good. You can start practicing making your projects. Of all the roles in data, why did you pick a DBA? Because I enjoy working with databases. I love databases. I love SQL. I love SQL, I love databases. I can talk about SQL until midnight, and I can talk about databases until midnight. I enjoy it. I don't get tired. Like even at workplace, by the way, I usually report early. Like, by the way, DBAs, first of all, I usually tell you, when you become a DBA, you just know you are like a doctor. Because you're the watchman, I told you, you have to make sure things are run 24/7. So you're like a doctor. As a DBA, you'll be called at midnight. One day you'll be called at midnight, they tell you the server is down. You have to wake up and troubleshoot that thing at midnight. One day utakuwa sherehe, you'll be called, the server is down. We have to get into a call and troubleshoot this, because your work is to make sure things are running 24/7. So when something happens, you have to be on the call. So as DBA, I enjoy this work because I love solving things. I like something that I don't think things that are continuous or monotonous. When I was working as a React developer, software developer, front end, I was mostly copying code from ChatGPT because I was not enjoying it. It was not giving me, it was something that I was doing it every day. It was monotonous. I'm not being challenged. It was just the normal things I was doing. But as a DBA, I find problem today. I work with a server, it disturbs me for 2 days, or a server is down, I have to get the answer quickly, the solution, because things are down, there is pressure, I get into a challenge, I learn new thing. And then a DBA, you learn every day you learn. And then another thing I can advise you as a DBA, by the way, when you become a DBA, a good DBA is not a smart DBA, by the way. A good DBA is someone who admits they don't know anything. A good DBA is the one who says, I don't know this, please help me do this, please show me. As I've been a DBA in this industry, most of the things, mostly when I don't know anything, we usually say, when you don't know anything as a DBA, don't guess. There is no room for guesswork in the DBA. We usually tell my colleagues are all gentlemen. We are 4 of us, they are gentlemen. So they usually say, wewe ukicheza utenda Kamiti. In Kenya, there is a prison for male people called Kamiti. So they usually say, hii job yetu unajua ukicheza utenda Kamiti, because as a DBA, you are the custodian of the data in the industry. You are the one who is keeping the data. You are the one who has full control of everything. If you run a certain script and it deletes all the data, you go to prison. You'll be prosecuted because you have not the company data. Or maybe you expose the database, the IP address to attackers. You have exposed it to the third-party people, and their address has sensitive information. The PII data will be taken to court or will be sued. So the DBA is a sensitive role. You need to be careful, and you need to be, the good thing I usually encourage people when you become a DBA, it is always good, 90% of the time, 100% of the time. A good DBA is someone who says, I don't know something, than someone who guesses. In DBA, there's no room for guesswork. We don't guess. It's better you say you don't know anything, someone comes and does it for you. If you don't know anything, don't do it. Don't guess. Don't go and start Googling. In DBAs, we would Google when you are learning about something, obvious when you are learning, when you want to understand a certain concept, yes. When you're doing your personal research, you'll Google. But you are fixing a problem in production as a DBA. You are fixing the problem. Don't rely on the Google. Just say, I don't know. Go to your supervisor, tell them, I don't know this thing. I've never worked with this thing, but I'm ready to research about it. But for now, I cannot touch it. I advise you to help me because you have experience on this. So that is the thing. Don't work alone. As a DBA, don't work alone. Always document. Always say what you're working on. Don't work alone. When you're stuck with something, always say, and in DBA, by the way, we look at how fast you are in escalating things. When you sense this database has started becoming slow, don't wait for the problem to happen. Don't wait for the users to start complaining. And you realize there is something suspicious. Always a good DBA is someone who tells out the problem early enough. Like recently in my job, we had, the way I've been talking about replication, we had an issue with the server B. Server B was not working well. It was not receiving the logs from the server A. It was behind. we usually say it is not syncing. When something is behind in DBA, the replication is behind the replica, we say it is not syncing with the primary. So the secondary was not syncing with the primary, and we did not tell our boss early enough. We did not solve, but the way we touched about it, but it took 2 days to solve that thing. We had not solved it. So something happens on the primary database. The primary database server now, the node is like the network. Is that like the node is another feature of the server. Something happens in the original server, and the database could not stay in the original server. And we had to switch back immediately to the secondary. And the secondary was not in sync with the primary. And what it means, if the secondary is not replicating, is not having the updated logs, it means you're going to lose your data. So we had that issue. That thing escalated to the CIO, Chief Information Officer, because we did not do our work as DBAs. We did not check the secondary if it was replicating. We delayed by 2 days solving that issue, and it brought an issue. But then we delayed. That database stayed in primary, but it was not working well. So there was an issue that we could not switch to the secondary. It had to call that's why we usually say when you are choosing the BMS now, we had to work with the people of the Oracle. In our company, we work with Oracle. We had to call Oracle to intervene. Oracle is our provider of a database management system in the company. That's why as a DBA, by the way, a role of a DBA now, you advise people on the DBMS to use the database management system. If you were using Postgres, it is open source. And mostly open source database in an enterprise architecture, you rarely get the support of the company people, of the people of Postgres. You'll only get support in internet. But this one now, when you're working with enterprise database like Oracle now, some sensitive system in most companies like the transaction system, they don't use Postgres. They can use Postgres for software development, but mostly they prefer Oracle because they know when they want the support immediately, they'll get it from the company people. So we had to liaise with Oracle to solve that issue because that one, our replica could not work. It was behind and we had to solve the issue early. Oh, now. Of all the roles in data, why did you? Yeah, I've told you I like DBA because I like being challenged. And if you are someone who likes being challenged, I work with different roles every day. Sometimes we get an issue, we have to wake up early like that. So it's not something that I solve every day. So it's sometimes the way you solve something today, we're not the same way you solve it tomorrow. So I like working like that. And I like working with databases, I've told you, I enjoy. And I also like being in control because when I'm a DB, I'm in control. I can tell that data analyst, I'm not going to give you access and did not do anything. So I like being in control. So because I like being in control also, I like sometimes bullying people. DBA is a good job because when I become a software engineer or a data analyst, I not bully people. Hey, now. Bully in a good way, by the way. A reasonable range would answer the salary question from Y to Z for entry-level roles. What are the industries that mainly hire DBAs frequently? Like what industry do most of you have fellow DBAs working? We have many industries. In most industries, we need to have someone who is going to, an industry that has a database should have a DBA ideally. If a supermarket has a DBA, Naivas has a DBA, Naivas is a supermarket. There's a time, but the way someone contacted me on LinkedIn, they wanted me to become a database administrator at Naivas. But I realized that Naivas, I'm going to be alone. And here I'm working with a team. And Naivas is not going to pay me well. And I'm going to suffer alone. I'm going to work. If in my workplace, we work as a team and I wake up sometimes early enough with troubleshoot things. What about Naivas? I'm going to be alone. And maybe they're not paying me well. So I told myself, no. But most companies that have databases have DBS. They should have DBS. A serious company. If Naivas has a DBA. Salary expectation of database someone has posted. Can you enlighten on writing a CV for data analyst? That one I leave for your teachers there to help there. But the way they usually give good teachings on salary. But on CV, but ensure in a CV, in a good CV for someone who is a data analyst, I'd advise you, ensure you include your GitHub or your portfolio link. Always include. If you're working in tech like a data engineer, data analyst, have your GitHub link or your portfolio link in a CV. If I'm hiring you, I need that link. I need to see what you've worked on. Don't want rumors. Data engineers, she said, learn Linux. What are the industries that mainly hire DBS frequently? Like what industry do most of you have fellow DBS? And then all banking industry always should have DBS. There's no bank will never have DBA. And then most serious companies have said they should have a DBA because they work with database. If you're working with a database, there should be someone that managing the database, unless you have outsourced a DBA. So every industry that does a database should have a DBA. A serious company should have a DBA. A reasonable range would, some companies hire a DBA in-house and some companies they outsource. So they hire DBA, but the DBA is not staying in the company. The DBA is like a consultant. A reasonable range would answer that salary. In summary, DBA is a sensitive role that requires constant upskilling. Yes, good. That is good, yes. Constant upskilling, yes. Peter Kimano, 75 to 180K per month. Yeah. We have that, and we also have some serious companies that can give you more. Yes, but mostly kimono is okay. What does your day look like? I've said my day. My day looks like mostly my day. Mostly my day I troubleshoot users' issues. A software engineer is telling me the query is slow. I have to troubleshoot that. I have to look at the query. I get an alert in the monitoring. When I'm monitoring my database, I'm getting an alert. There are some weights, there are some logs. Because when there are many transactions in a database, sometimes some transactions lock a table. So there'll be weights. So I'll check which transaction or which query is making these weights to be there. I monitor my database every day. I also work with data engineers also and data analysts. Data engineers mostly when we are creating database objects or we are modeling a database. I attend projects, discussions. When a data engineer and data analyst, they start a project, or software engineers, they have to involve me also because they will need a database. So I have to go there and I attend it via Teams call and I see what they are doing so that I know from this project that they're starting, I will need a database with this CPU, with this memory, with this to be hosted in cloud or on premise. So I attend projects. I do database audit also. I do create users in my daily life also. I give them access to tables and to database. Maybe they need to make a change in production. So I give access for updating the production. Maybe they want to make a change. I also whitelist, network whitelisting, database. Like if there's a user who is coming on board and they are getting to the database from a certain server, I have to whitelist the server to the network so that there's no firewall. That is my daily work mostly. My daily work. And then also in my daily work also, I make sure I also work with, I work with other people to optimize the data to the scripts they are running. Yes. Pay well, ningapi, madam. We also want to be paid well. Oh, we have companies that pay well. We have companies that can pay entry level. The way someone has said, 80. We have, if entry level, we can have a company that is good. It can pay you 250. If a company is very good, they are generous, they can pay you 250. Or mostly, but Peter Kimano, the range he has given for entry level, yes, mostly is that way. It's correct. 75 to 80K or to 200. And we have some companies that can be generous and they give you 250. Or you decide to now go international. I'm talking about Kenya. Now, when you start going international, and then once you are in entry level in the DBA and you have stayed for 2 years, your salary can start jumping now. It can start jumping. Is that a net or gross? I'm talking about gross. I'm talking about a gross. When a company has for entry level and it's very good, it can pay you 250 gross when it's very good. Entry level now you're just starting out, or the range that Peter has said. But So these days, for a company to pay you 75, maybe they are these small companies when you are starting. But when you just stay 1 year and you are good, you jump. Can you, although my first salary was 70 gross when I was still a software developer, was 70 gross. Yeah. And it can jump. Is that a net or gross? Can you describe a period where you solved a problem at your company and you are really proud of it? A period where I solved, yeah. Mostly in my company, I've had replication issues. Oh, I've had a place where a data engineer, that's why I told you they need giving data engineer access to production. A data engineer went and deleted the tables columns and did not tell people. And he did not know that this data engineer did not know that we are DBAs and we can check the logs. So we just checked the logs and we realized this application is not working the way it was. This data engineer went and deleted something important. He implemented some files and those files were keeping the cron tabs, the cron jobs. And then some jobs that were doing the backup, they stopped running. Yes. So we realized the backups were not running. It was not running for 3 days. Kumbe someone came in and deleted some files and those files were keeping the cron tab files for cron jobs. And then we realized we pinpointed. And then another issue that I solved recently was a replication issue also. The database was not replicating only because the network, there was a change in the network configuration by the network people and they did not inform us. So the database was not replicating. So I was able to pinpoint that issue and it started replicating. Most things we usually solve. And then we also, there's a time we had a fraud case, almost a fraud case, but we solved it before it became a fraud case. But that one I cannot say. Hey, can you describe a period where you solved a problem? Since the bureaus are very sensitive, would you say that companies would prefer one to be on site rather than? No, you can work remotely. It's not that preferring. Mostly I don't work, I only go on site because my company wants me to be on site. But at DBA, you can work from anywhere. Like sometimes when I'm troubleshooting things now, I've been called at midnight. I'll not go to the office at midnight. I'll have to work from remote and connect to my laptop. As DBA, by the way, we don't leave our laptops at work. DBAs, we don't leave our laptops at work because our work, anything can happen at midnight. So we don't leave our laptops at work. Like I work with data software engineers who leave their laptops at work and they usually ask me, you usually carry your laptop around every day. They don't know my role is different from theirs. I have to keep things running 24/7. So as we don't leave laptops at work, even when I'm traveling, I'm going to Zanzibar, I go with my laptop. Sometimes I might be on leave and maybe there's something sensitive. There are people at work, yes, but maybe there's something sensitive that needed my attention. So I'll have to log in. Yes, you can work remotely as a DBA. We have companies that allow remotely these days. It just depends on the company. Yes, we work with sensitive data, but as a DBA, you know your data is sensitive, so you have to protect it. You don't expose your data to people. You don't expose IPs to your neighbors or to your wife or your husband. They should not know the company data. They should not know the company. Yeah. You can work remotely. I know of a DBA friend gets that one, by the way. I remember, so the sky is the limit. Yes. Yes. They can pay well. Yes, they can pay well. That's neat money, but starters, you're a bit. No, the sky is the limit the way they have told you. The sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. You never know. Like me, when I was starting out, they were wanting 2 years experience. They were wanting software certification of Oracle, and I did not have. But I went there with my passion. So you never know. You can easily get that money. Obviously, in USD, Leslie, which course are you doing? Because when did for 1 so a data analyst or data scientist doesn't have the skills to do the major skills needed by DB based on what you have talked about was no. Data analysts I've talked, you have SQL seriously. And I've asked you data analysts to learn how to optimize your queries. Have I not talked about that chapter? I've said Master SQL. As data analyst, you learn SQL. I know data analyst, you must learn SQL. You cannot be a data analyst if you don't know SQL, unless that you are joking, but you have to know SQL. Like me, when I started as a DB, I started when I only knew SQL, and I knew some Linux skills. I knew Linux, yes. So a data analyst, you have something good. You have SQL. And another thing, you have to learn how to optimize your scripts. That is something a data analyst should just learn. And you can become a DBA if you know how to optimize your scripts and you know SQL very well. Other things you can always learn on the job as things go by. So the only thing that maybe if you are not learning Linux, you can start learning Linux, but we have data scientists that learn Linux and data analysts that learn Linux. So maybe, but you have SQL. SQL is the even without going to Linux, because we have MS SQL. The way I've told you, there is MS SQL, Microsoft SQL. Most MS SQL people, they just use SQL when you're working with this MS SQL, and they use with that SQL mostly. They rarely use Linux because the MS SQL has UI, user interface, and you can run some jobs from the MS SQL UI, user interface. So when you are becoming an MS SQL DBA, sometimes you can become without knowing some Linux scripts because it's not Linux heavy mostly, but you should know it. So as a data analyst, you can do it. You have the skill, the main skill, the SQL, you have it, and you can learn about optimization. I said, as a data analyst, I know I expect you to learn some optimization, because I don't expect a data analyst to run select all every day. No. Just learn some optimization skills and you'll be good. You become a DBA. We are okay, Joy? How do you demonstrate Linux knowledge in GitHub? Those things that you have been doing, the way you have been creating files, permissions, share them. Create a GitHub repo, and then you post those things that you have been doing on the command line. You can always create a repo, and you post those things, like shell scripting, you post them. You can demonstrate it on GitHub. The way people share code on GitHub, you can demonstrate it. You started with creating a directory, then you added a user, you removed the directory, you renamed it. Then you can call that project maybe Linux file administration or system, or file permission project. Then you demonstrate. How can you demonstrate DB optimization in GitHub? Yeah, that one, DB optimization in GitHub. In DB optimization in GitHub, you can explain it as you write we usually have what do we call that thing? The explanation. What do we call when you comments? We have comments. So you can write your code. I wrote a code that was saying select all. Then I optimized my query. Instead of selecting all, I said select name from this, and then where A is equals to this, or select this, limit this. Because when you use a limit, it means SQL will not scan the whole table. So you explain the first query was not optimized. It took 10 minutes. But when I wrote this query, it is now optimized. When I ran it, it gave me the results in 1 second. Are we together, Grace? We have written a code and shared in GitHub. The first code was running for 10 minutes. I've demonstrated. And then the second code, I wrote it now. It's giving me results within 1 minute. Data engineer, we can also check the logs. Rarely. Unajua, logs are mostly server level logs, and server level permissions. They rarely give you in a company. Rarely. But you can work with other things like database optimization you can do, because you usually create objects in the database. You usually create views. You usually manage files. You copy, you SSH. Logs mostly is for DBS because they're the ones managing. So you will not see. Mostly you will not see the logs. Unless you'll only see the logs of maybe your scripts you are running, but not the server logs that are hosting the database. Can you give examples of companies that are employed at entry level? Many companies. All the companies I've worked, they employ entry level. I've worked with the fintech group Kenya Limited. It is in Ambank building. They usually like entry-level people. If you are good and you are confident like me, you can easily speak. Yes. Because when I was going there, I went with my all confidence until the person who is always, that recruiter is always like a harasser. I'm the one who harassed him. Because I spoke a lot until he kept quiet. So, depends with your confidence. And we go with God. Any company can hire entry level. So, FinTech Group is one of them. And then some companies, they hire by graduate management trainee. Maybe they hire you as a graduate management trainee, then they absorb you like that. And then also in my company, also if you're good, I entered like entry level. God was with me. They wanted 2 years experience, but God was with me. We have FinTech Group Kenya Limited also. FinTech Group Kenya Limited. I talked about FinTech Group. Now we have FinCES Africa. FinCES Africa is also a good company. I've worked with them. They're the ones who gave me an opportunity, to start in the world of databases. Those are the companies I've worked with.
FinCES, spelling please.
FinCES Africa. Fin alafu sense, then sense. Sense for sense, then fin. It's one word. FinCES Africa. It's a good company. It's a good company. I've worked with them. They're good people. If provided you match the role description, just go. Next time when you are traveling, hand over well. You won't carry. Yes, we hand over well. We hand over well. But now it is not about handing over well. We hand over. But now it is an issue that involves us to be there to troubleshoot as a team. We work together as a team now. Because it is a problem that has come, it has occurred, now we have to troubleshoot as a team. That is not about the handing over now. It's not like you're going to hand over some queries to run or some password that someone should use in the server. No, that is not how it works. We have had a problem. The server is down now, and my colleagues are working on it. Now they cannot solve it. We have to come together in a Teams call now to think together as one. Now that's when my PC comes in. I log in. And then we start thinking on the call. If everyone gives the ideas now. Industry-based practices not carrying work home. In my work, now I've told you, I'll have to carry work home. I enjoy doing it. And also, something can go down. Something can happen. Something can happen. Or maybe there is a spike in the CPU. There's a spike in the CPU. Like the way this data analyst will write a query that is not optimized, there is a spike in the CPU. Transactions will not go through. And you know, when I'm working in the banking sector, I'm working with you people. You want to transact your money. The way you transact money from M-Pesa, and M-Pesa is slow, is not working. M-Pesa is not giving you feedback. You start complaining. We don't want to lose revenue. How do you expect me not to carry my laptop? And I don't want to lose revenue. I don't want to lose customers. I'll have to carry my laptop and solve the issue. Yeah? Because now, transaction mobile banking is not working. You are on Christmas. Umeenda sherehe, you have gone on a party. You are paying on the counter. You cannot pay with your mobile money. You don't have cash, Harun. Peter, you don't have cash. And you expect that mobile money to work. And mobile money is not working. Now you look, now they come and tell us mobile money is not, transactions are not going through. We have to get into a call to realize why are transactions not going through. So that is something that has just happened. So how do you expect me not to carry my laptop? If I don't carry my laptop now, it means customers, I will lose them. And that is money we are losing. Every second that our system is down, every second we are losing billions of money. You have to think in terms of money, my dear. It's not about as like a software engineer, I go and deploy, and then I go home, I not carry, I've finished my work, I've deployed. No, that is our work is not like that. That's why I've told you my work is 24/7. Anything can happen. Now I hope you have the reason why I carry my laptop and I enjoy carrying it. So in my work, it's not allowed about industry-based practices and not carrying your work home. No, we don't carry work home. We go home when there is no work, but work comes up because something happens and you want to withdraw money from mobile banking and it is not working. You now say, this bank is letting me down. I'm no longer going to become a client. And you don't want that. My work is to make sure everything is running 24/7. That is my work, my main role. without downtime, no downtime, even 1 second. How do you interact with the data scientists in your line of work? How you interact with them? We interact with them, we work together, we create them in the system, we give them access. Maybe they create things, they create scripts they want to run. We review the scripts. If they are dangerous in our system, we advise them. If they are using an application that we don't allow, maybe we don't use maybe VS Code, maybe we tell them use this. Why we don't allow this, the features why we don't allow, it's not secure. Maybe a data scientist want to connect Power BI to my database. I can help them by removing the firewall that is preventing the Power BI from coming. So I whitelist them. They can be able to access the database. So they pull the reports directly to the Power BI without having a user in the database. They get their reports in the Power BI directly from the database. Yeah, Finces Africa is there. Dennis has posted. It's a good company. I work with those people. They are good. They're very good. Do your work environment have work from home for data scientists and data engineers? In most banking industry, people work on site. So in my company, they work on site. But most in our weekends, they can work from home. Weekends, they can work from home. They work from home also when there are strikes. When there are strikes, they can work from home. Yeah. Or when there is lockdown, they can work from home. It depends with the industry, by the way. Most banking industry, they want to, in Kenya, they want you to work on site. But sometimes in the weekend, they work from home. Or when they are on strike, they work from home. You can work from home. Even me, we work from home, but it's mostly the industry now. The industry wants us to work on site, so we'll go. Are you currently part of tech tutors at LuxDev? Yes, I'm part-time. I'm part-time. Sometimes I will appear. Sometimes I appear. So when invited, I will appear. And mostly I teach about SQL or data warehouse or databases. That is my main thing. One day I will teach you about Linux. Paymentology and Technoroots Limited had some OpenDB positions. Higher. Now we have spoken. I've talked about the skills you need as a DBA. And I've told you as a DBA, a good DBA is the one who usually says, I don't know. Always know that. The thing that I'll leave you with, a good DBA is that one who is not smart, who does not have all the hard skills. Like me, when I started, didn't have all the hard skills. I wasn't smart like those people who interviewed, but the willingness to learn and always admitting you don't know is better than guessing. DBA, admit you don't know is stronger than guessing, going to Google and guessing the solution for production. It's better. That's why we work as a team. We come together when there's an issue. Sometimes my colleague cannot solve. We now work together. We come together and we put our heads together and we think together now. That is a DBA. We work as a team. Always involve teamwork. And then as a DBA, improve on communication skills. Most people usually say that tech people are introverts or sometimes they don't like talking, but improve on your communication skills. Because as a DBA, you'll always work with people. Me, I work with people at work. I troubleshoot their issues. Queries are slow. They want access that is not supposed to be there. Maybe they want to optimize something. Maybe data engineer want to construct a data warehouse. They involve me in the data warehouse construction. A data analyst wants to query some data using Power BI. A data analyst maybe wants to convert a file from SQL to something. I work with the data analyst also. Yeah. So improve on your communication skills. They'll take you higher, by the way. Communication skills, most companies that are good, they value more soft skills than the hard skills because hard skills can always be learned. Hard skills can always be learned on the job. But if your soft skills are poor, you cannot work with people, most companies, they'll avoid you. Yeah, that is me. I have spoken. Today we will reach there. I'm not going. If you are mentor someone, what will you require of them? I am requesting for mentorship. Mostly I don't do one-on-one mentoring, but I'm part of the LuxDevTech Academy. So when you post anything on the Teams call, I was about to call Teams call or IP address. When you post anything on the WhatsApp group, I'm in the WhatsApp group for LuxDev. I will see them. Or you can reach me through your tutors when you want me. Or you can reach me also. Arun said they'll share my contacts. You can reach me. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm called Doreen Nangira. On LinkedIn, I mostly respond on LinkedIn. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Give me a DM. I'll respond. I'll advise you. Yeah. Yeah. And Harun will share my contacts because I'm part of the team of LuxDev. I'm in your WhatsApp groups. What will you require of a mentee? I want a mentee who is not lazy, a mentee who has hunger for learning, for improving, and a mentee who doesn't give up, and a mentee who is ready to admit that doesn't know something but is willing to learn. Yeah. And the way Harun usually advises you, don't over-rely on ChatGPT. Yeah. Like recently, yeah, I told you, by the I did not say, someone recently copied a code directly from ChatGPT and copied it on production environment from ChatGPT. Seriously, that person had an issue. He destroyed all the configurations on the server. Now you see now, that's why as a DBA usually say, when you're a DBA, it's better to say I don't know than copying something on Google and putting it on production. It's better you say I don't know. Yeah. So that person copied on the production environment and all the configurations were lost that are important for the system. And you can imagine what happened. And they started complaining. Yeah. So it's better you say you don't know. Yeah, so that is from me now. I will not answer more questions. More questions will be answered on the WhatsApp group for LuxDev. You post there. And now someone can come back. Is it Harun or who was that? Hey, is it Harun? Who is that? Who was to come back and finish? To close? Hey, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Grace Mushiri.
I'm here.
Mushiri, but there I have a good friend who is
To
a DBA
move
with a Mushiri.
fast
He's a very
through
good DBA also. So maybe you become a good DBA Mushiri. You'll encourage that.
Doreen?
Yes? Yes?
Sorry.
Okay, you
I
can go on.
can't
We are
move like
done.
3 rooms before also listening to you. Okay, so you are aware that apart from the ones that are here, we also have people in physical who are listening to you. It's always a pleasure to have you. You know, you're always there when we request you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to you teaching more SQL classes. If you tell Doreen to teach the classes, then you request her to teach other classes. So she has that, what is it called? Yeah, she has that habit of teaching like everyone needed to understand, and you all end up understanding. I thank you for creating time. When you hear about the opportunity, always keep sharing with them. I see we have so many people, whether in the organization or in the students community. I'm hearing so much noise. Like there are people talking from all sides. I hope you can still hear me. In the organization or in the student community, you have people from different line. And also to note, we have a graduation next weekend where tunachinja ng'ombe kadhaa na mbuzi. So the point is, if you all can come, please make sure that you get a student account, but Doreen is allowed to come at no price. Huh? Yeah. So you are welcome, Doreen, to interact with them next weekend if you are free. That is on Friday after work. The graduation starts at 11, but the after party is from 4. You can come and talk to them. Otherwise, I don't have another question. If they don't have a question, code 8. We just got started, so don't panic. Don't hear Greek. Don't feel like you should drop. The first week, especially for data engineering, was meant to break you and have many people start with data analytics, especially who are new in the data space. The next 10 weeks will be very easy Don't worry. And I'm sorry I gave you the tip, because I know so many of you had texted and asking, oh, can I go to data analytics? Then maybe in future I can come to data engineering. Then you don't have to worry. It was done specifically for that, because it's our feel like you need to know how to at least code and at least do few things so that you move to data engineering. But if you manage the week, then you are a G, you are a hero, and I'm very sure you'll complete the program. Otherwise, let's keep pushing. We'll meet next week. Code 7 next week. We are specializing. So data engineering are going to do data engineering stuff. Data science are going to do data science stuff. So expect to do more data science. Expect to do more with analytics and mathematics and statistics with a gentleman called Emmanuel. Data engineers expect to see Anthony more often with Docker, Kafka, Airflow. Very many tunasema vitu zinashtua, but I'm very sure you'll hack it. Otherwise, thank you, Doreen. You can drop, let's side chat and complete our conversation. Otherwise, the rest, unless you have a question for me or the team, you can drop. Have a great weekend. Have a great, remember to rest, close those laptops, and take a good rest. Next week awaits.
Yeah, good night.
Fiti, Doreen, usilale before tumalizane. Sawa. Let's end our conversation today.